Hi, in this video we're going to be looking at the 3 technique trainers in All for Strings Book 1. You'll find these in your book on page 26, it's numbers 76, 77, and 78. Now you might be asking, why are these songs called technique trainers? That's not a very fun and exciting title. Well, hopefully by now you've learned how to play your D major scale and you've seen how it's relevant and important to playing our other songs because all of the notes in your D major scale are found in your other songs. It's like the ingredients to making a cake. You have to have all of the ingredients together before you can make a beautiful and tasty cake. The same is true for our music. We have to have all the notes together. You have to know how to play them well before you can combine them to make a beautiful composition of music. Our technique trainers are more focused on our technique, our posture, and making sure that we're playing well. So, for example, if you look at technique trainer number 1, the main purpose of technique trainer number 1 is to teach you and to teach your left hand how to place the fingers down before you play a note. So as an example, if you just start from the very beginning, it starts on your open A and it goes back and forth between A and B. Okay, that's pretty simple. It's kind of just like a scale. You go up to B, you go back to A. But look at the next measure. It's A to C sharp. And you'll see that there's a little tiny dot in between the first A and C sharp. That's the note B. That's just reminding us, hey, before you place your second finger, make sure your first finger is down. So you'll play open A, place your first finger, then your second finger. Then you can lift them both, play A, place them both down again. This is because we don't want to just throw our second finger down while our first finger is up here having a party, because there's a lot more room for error or of us missing and placing it down in a not a good spot. Another reason is because a lot of times after you play the note C sharp, there's a good chance you're going to play the note B as well, your first finger. And if you already have it down, you've already done your homework. Your first finger is already there. You don't have to worry about setting it down again. So this practicing number 76 is all about making sure that your fingers are down before you play a higher note. So for example, in measure 3, it goes from A up to D. Before you play, don't just place your third finger down. You want to walk up, 1, 2, 3. Now, when you're doing this for the first time, I recommend taking it slow. Make sure you have a pause between each note. Set the fingers one at a time, and then play. What will happen over time, if you're doing this with good technique, is you'll get faster and faster and faster, and you'll eventually be able to just play very smoothly. And you'll be able to set all 3 fingers down and lift them together without having to go slowly one at a time. But don't just start that way. Don't just try and flop your fingers down and hope that they get in the right spot. Be very deliberate in where you're placing them. We want to learn the geography of the fingerboard really well. So what we'll do now is we'll play through technique trainer number 1. I'll play it through and then spend some time practicing it before you go on to 2 and 3. Just practice slowly, focus on your fingers. And one last note is you'll see that there's an M underneath the song that just reminds us we're playing in the middle of the bow for this one. Because they're quarter notes, we don't need to use the whole bow. You'll use the whole bow on the half notes where you see the donuts on a stick. Those are each 2 counts. So you're going to go whole bow, whole bow. But on all the quarter notes, just kind of play in the middle of the bow. All right, here we go. Let's play technique trainer number 1 together, starting on the open A. 1, 2, 3, 4. At the end, there's a retake and a repeat, so you could play it twice in a row if you'd like. Now we're going to look at number 2. Technique trainer number 2 has a different focus. We're taking what we've learned already about keeping our fingers down. We want to keep the fingers down, absolutely, but we're also going to build in string crossings. You'll notice that each measure is kind of sandwiched with open D. It goes D and then 2 notes and then back to open D. So we're always going to be changing strings on this one. And we don't want to get this kind of a sound. We don't want to have that crossing over of strings. So when you're first practicing this one, go very slowly, play the D, then freeze, rock to the A string, play A, and then rock back. This is particularly important because we're doing all of our string crossings in this one at the tip, where because of the way geometry works, when you're at the tip, in order to do a string crossing, you need to move your arm. If you watch my hand height, in order to switch from D to A, I have to move up and down a lot further than if I'm here at the frog. At the frog, you can cross all 4 strings without moving your arm at all. But out here at the tip, you get this like giant chicken wing flapping motion. Your hand has to really travel a lot just to change strings. So take your time at first. Play D, rock, rock. So go ahead and practice those string crossings a few times, and then when you're ready, let's jump into number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in both number 2 and number 3 of our technique trainers, whenever we're placing our fingers down, we want to keep them down the whole time. So looking back in number 2, if you look in measure 2, you'll see it goes D, B, B, D. Don't lift your first finger when you go back to open D. Why? Because in the next measure, we're going to play C sharp. And if we have lifted our first finger, now we have to go back and do that work of placing the first finger and the second finger. But if we kept our first finger down, when we get the C sharp here, all we have to do is add the second finger. And the same is true here, add the third finger. So we want to keep our fingers down when we're crossing strings. It's just like our tunnel in the D major scale when we walked up on the D string and then we go to open A. You want to keep that third finger down. It's not a particularly difficult skill. It's pretty simple in concept, but if you're not used to doing those tunnels, you might have some issues blocking the string where you get kind of a squeaky sound. That just means that your fingers are not standing up nice and tall with round rainbow fingers. They might be kind of flattened like this, and that really will weaken the sound, and it'll make the back of your fingers touch the other strings, which makes the sound get squeaky. So make sure your fingers are always nice and round, rainbow curved fingers. All right, looking at number 3. Number 3 takes what we've learned in 1 and 2 and combines them. We're still doing our string crossings just like we did in number 77, but we're always walking up our fingers, and we're actually holding our fingers down across strings. So we start with D, A again, but now we place our first finger on the D string for E, and then we're going to hop across to B. Now, if your hands are a little bit small, you might not be able to do this. If you have larger hands, you should be able to place your first finger right in the middle of both strings, and you can catch both notes. And you don't have to adjust your hand at all. Same with the second finger. Now, you'll notice there with when I place my third finger between both strings, it sounds bad on the A string, and the reason is because our fingers aren't Lego blocks. They're not squares, so they don't come perfectly down on both strings. This is why what's going to be probably a better use for this technique trainer is not practicing holding your finger down on both strings, but hopping between the two. So, for example, when you play E, B, B, just tilt your first finger over to the A string, and then go back to the D string. Here, when you play F sharp, just pick it up and slide over to the A string, and go back. Same here. Now, as a reminder, because we're doing string crossings in this one, just like we did in number 2, be very careful with your string crossings. Don't hit more than one string at a time. Always be very deliberate about changing strings. And once you've kind of gotten the feel of hopping your fingers across strings, like both fingers here can hop across, both fingers here can hop across, you want to just start slowly and then build up your speed. So when you're ready, here we go, number 3, Technique Trainer 3. Starting on open D. 1, 2, 3, 4. have it, 3 technique trainers, and by practicing these, they're not songs necessarily. They might not sound very beautiful and you might not hear them in the background of a movie, but they will give you the skills you need, the necessary skills to play your other songs much better, much quicker, much faster. You'll learn your songs better. These are kind of like doing workouts, just like how if you want to get strong arms, you would go and do a bunch of push-ups. These are like push-ups for your violin playing technique. So add these to your scale practice whenever you take your violin out of its case. Check your strings, make sure they're in tune. Start with a D major scale and then try these technique trainers. Maybe just pick 1 or 2 at a time and practice them slowly. They're not about playing fast. If you play them fast and sloppy, you're unpracticing. You're actually making it much worse for yourself. So it's much better to play these slowly, play them in tune, play them with a good sound, and then it'll make your regular songs sound 10 times better in the future.